In amateur video Reuters can't verify, the al-Qaeda offshoot said overnight it's close to claiming its victory.
The soldiers of Islam are now crawling towards this city, as you can see. The soldiers of Islamic State are on their way to decide the battle outcome. This is happening despite the coalition efforts, and God willing, we will destroy the infidels.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, talking about Kobani. Joining us now is Peter Brookes, Senior Fellow of National Security Affairs at the Heritage Foundation, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. Hello, Peter.
Hey.
Always great to talk to you. All right, your piece talks about ISIS in a different way than the administration likes to talk about them and some others. And you talk about how ISIS is not a passing thunderstorm, that it's not being blown way out of proportion. You say this is a violent Islamist extremist group, and it isn't really that big a deal that that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, I heard people around town on television and other things, kind of dismissing what's happening over there in Syria and Iraq, and I just said, come on, folks. I mean, look what's going on the ground. I mean, people's attention does get diverted by so many different stories, including the Ebola story, but this thing on Kobani has been unfolding for a few days, and I think people really need to realize that this is something that could be with us for a long time. It's very deadly, it's rich, it's powerful, the largest terrorist group. In fact, it's the terrorist army that we've ever dealt with, and the president's strategy for dealing with it in Syria and Iraq is failing. So that was the point of the piece in the Boston Herald yesterday.
Yeah, and it is failing. And the explanation, it's embarrassing to hear the State Department spokespeople speak, or any representative of the administration, White House spokesperson, when they're asked about this and why aren't we doing more to help the people in that area and that city. And the president said all along this is going to be a long process. In other words, they're almost saying, well, the president has said we're not going to get too involved. So just chill out, because that's how I interpret what they're saying.
And I think there's a lot of pressure coming from his senior military advisors about changing the strategy. And I'm hearing, I don't know if this will be the case, that the president isn't willing to do that at this time. I mean, what he's doing, Steve, is he thinks he can turn up the heat whenever he wants. In other words, he's like, okay, I'm just going to start with this, and we're going to have the Iraqis do this, and the Peshmerga do that, and we're going to develop some this, and we're going to do some bombing. But the level of effort is going to be very low. And the idea here is that, maybe we'll get a shot at the leader of this group, al-Baghdadi, and we'll take him out, and maybe that'll change things. And they think that this group is kind of a house of cards, and if they pull out the right card, the whole thing will come down. They may or may not be right about that. The fact of the matter is that their strategy going into this, we've been bombing over there since August, more intensely since September. I think we've had 400 strikes. And the situation is not going well. They've maybe slowed ISIS's advance. The Iraqi army still doesn't have its act together. We're not transferring the weapons to the Peshmerga that they need to defend themselves. Right. They can't get Turkey on board. I mean, there's a lot of problems with the strategy. I mean, they come up with a strategy, which I think they just did in a moment, and now they're not able to actually fulfill their strategy, and the situation is not going very well.
And Kobani, I mean, if there's a massacre in Kobani, I had one Kurdish representative talk to me yesterday saying that they'll blame Obama and the United States for being responsible, for not doing more to help prevent that and give the troops and the arms that they need to defend themselves. But I want to bring it home here. Because, yesterday we had a report, a statement from Congressman Duncan Hunter that there had been 10 ISIS members apprehended crossing the Mexican border. Homeland Security said absolutely not. Judicial Watch today doubling down, saying that they have been told by Homeland Security officials, who they will not name or who haven't been named, that yes, indeed, they've been apprehending terrorists at the border, including ISIS. So, this isn't just a threat somewhere else.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. I mean, my goodness, if that is correct, I mean, it's obviously chilling. The idea, and Steve, you can't just worry about the southern border. You know that most people don't realize this, but the Canadian government did their own study, and they've got tens of Canadians who are overseas fighting in jihads. Now, that's not just Syria. I think there's some in Somalia and other places.
Right.
But you can't. I mean, we've had. I don't want to, besmirch the Canadians here, but the fact is we have a northern border, and we had, a millennial plot coming out of, coming across the border in the year 2000. We've had other things like attacking trains that transiting between New York and Toronto. I mean, there's a lot of things. So we're living in a very dangerous world. The threat vectors are coming from a lot of different directions, and we need to be serious about this, and we need the president to own it. He needs to own this.
First, he better own Ebola, or it's not going to make much difference what ISIS does, I'm sorry to say. And I don't have confidence he's going to own anything. Peter, great to talk to you, sir, as always.
Thanks for having me.
The great Peter Brookes, ladies and gentlemen. Heritage Foundation. I just want to say these days, doesn't it seem like everyone with a smartphone is taking selfies? Who ever heard of a selfie before a few months ago or a year ago or 2 years? But could you be breaking the law when you post selfies of you and your friends on social media? We go now to Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz for the answers.
Selfies are becoming very popular with everyone. Hey, I'm taking one myself right now. Even the President of the United States takes his own selfies. A selfie, of course, is when you use your own smartphone to photograph yourself alone or with other persons. Now, here's the legal question. After taking the selfie that includes other people, perhaps even strangers or famous people, can you circulate the image on the internet and elsewhere? Well, there's no hard and fast rule. But if the other person is aware that you took the photograph, then that person is generally presumed to have consented to its non-commercial circulation. A smile is usually a good sign of consent. Still, you can't use it for commercial purposes, such as selling a product or promoting a business. For example, when David Big Papi Ortiz, the Red Sox designated hitter, discovered this, he took a selfie with the president, President Obama, during a visit by the world champions to the White House. But when Big Papi tried to capitalize on the selfie by using his opportunity to plug a corporate sponsor, Samsung, the White House was not amused, and he was told to stop. There are also other limits. If it's a selfie involving someone's private sexual life, the other person has the right to assume that it was made purely for personal amusement and not for public disclosure. Being photographed in a compromising position does not create the same presumption of consent as does smiling in a photo. So remember, all selfies are not the same, and act accordingly. I'm Alan Dershowitz for Newsmax TV.